10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Paul Chandler, the Shy Yeti. He's not that shy.
Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Boy, he's not all that shy, is right. Shit.
Blimey, Governor, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Excellent.
500.
Hello, campers. How are you?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How are you doing? I'm all right. Yes. Well, so what are we going to be up to this episode? Well, we've got a special guest. You'll recognise him as soon as I say his name. It's Jay the Hauntcub. Jay, it's great to have you back.
Hey, it's good to be back. Thank you.
Back by popular demand. I felt that we still had sort of things to finish off, and also Comedy wanted to speak to you about your virtual reality dinosaur, so it just seemed like a good idea to get you back. And I know we've got some big news about Aragog to share, and well, I better not say too much, so I'll give it away. So let's run that theme music, and when we come back, we'll we've got so much planned. So run that theme music.
Johnny, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Yeah, but it's a positive statement. The highlights, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
You don't want Paul now, do you?
I'll go anywhere for a potato.
This particular episode of the Shy Life is a little more abstract than usual.
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh my, he hasn't found out my secret. I think he has.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Oh, I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life Podcast.
So, we do we say Yeah, I am strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
But has the Shy Life Podcast slowed down? I don't think so.
It's all gooey and meaty and yum, 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 yum.
And we're back. So, how are you doing, Jay? How is 2022 treating you?
I am doing pretty well. Can't complain about the year so far. I mean, you know, in the after times of the plague, you know, it's as good as it gets, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just patiently waiting for summer to get here.
Yes. Yeah. I went to the cinema for the first time the other day, which is probably the first time I've been since for like 2 years. I think I went in about January 2020 when I was on holiday with Toby, but I got to see the new Scream, which I was very pleased about. So.
Yes.
Have you ventured into cinemas, or was there nothing on you wanted to see? That's the other thing.
No, actually, I have not been at all since COVID started. In fact, the last thing I remember, now I could be wrong, but the last one I really remember seeing was the final movie in the last Star Wars trilogy, which I think was during the holidays of 2019. Yeah. But I'm sure we could have seen something in the first 3 months of 2020. I don't specifically remember seeing a movie then, so that's what I'm going to have to go with. And there have been things, you know, I know you know that I'm a massive Godzilla fan, and I actually did not. That movie was released on HBO Max here in the States and in the theater at the same time, and I actually did not wind up going to see it in the theater, which is very surprising to me, especially because I really thought I was going to. But I think after so long, it just wasn't as much of a grab for me to do it. I enjoy the experience of seeing blockbusters and stuff on the big screen with the sound and all that kind of stuff. I have a very low patience for people talking or being on their cell phones and things like that. And the only weird exception is like a lot of the Marvel movies, like the comic book movies, which you think, you know, have a lot of fanboys and things like that. But I think a lot of times people are so into actually seeing those that they don't tend to be as chatty and stuff. So I found less with that. Horror to me, which of course you and I share as a passion, seems to attract a lot of the people, at least in the States here, that can be a bit rude and stuff. So I have not made it to the theater. There's only a little part of me that misses going, but I'll probably venture back out. I really would like to see the new Robert Pattinson Batman that's going to be out in March. So that may be the first time I wind up going. I'm
not like a massive James Bond fan, but I usually go and see James Bond. But it came out sort of around the time of my birthday, and I wasn't that well around that time, and so I kind of postponed it. And then it was out on Blu-ray by December, so I skipped that in the end. But I did watch. I don't know about you. It might just be the setup of our TV, but I find a lot of, particularly with Blu-rays, I don't know if it's because they're set up more for like people who've got like home sound systems with lots of speakers. But you're watching a film and you have to have the volume up to a certain point for like talking scenes, and then the music comes on and it's like,
yes,
wow, quick, turn the volume down.
Yep.
The neighbours start coming, like stomping on the ceiling, sort of thing.
Right.
So I've kind of got a setup at the moment where I've got an extension lead on a headphones, and I've been watching the Blu-rays on my. I got to the stage where I was kind of watching stuff on my laptop rather than on the TV, because if it was in the evening, I couldn't be sure what I was going to be. That it wasn't going to be, because I tend to stay up later anyway. It was difficult. So I was kind of getting to the stage where I was watching stuff on my laptop and not using the TV very much. But I've got an extension cord now, and I watched the. Last Night in Soho, which is the Edgar Wright most latest film.
Yep.
And it's sort of like a psychological horror film, and it has Diana Rigg, her last role.
Oh wow!
With a sort of playing quite a major part, although it's certainly a very important part. She's not in every scene, but she's a very important character.
Okay.
I haven't always liked every film that I mean, I like Shaun of the Dead and like Hot Fuzz, and then I went a bit sort of, the ones I saw after that were a bit sort of okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was good, and there was lots of sort of, particularly being that it's set in London, there were one or two sort of famous 60s actors and actresses in it as well, playing relatively major parts. So it was. Yeah, he'd done his homework, and so I probably would have seen that at the cinema had things been normal, but it was.
That's pretty cool.
I got it as soon as it came out on Blu-ray to be able, so I was able to see it. And Toby really liked it too. In fact, he saw it first. But.
I would have liked to have seen the second in the newer. Planned trilogy of the Halloween movies, so I still have not seen the second movie. And is it Halloween Kills?
Kills. Yeah, I would have seen that. Yeah, I would have seen that.
Because I've heard the name of the third one too, and I couldn't remember whether that was the second or the third one. But I still haven't seen that, and I really should have seen that in the theater as well, because I am a big Halloween fan as well. So yeah,
I think it's available to see on Prime here, but it's quite expensive, and I'm kind of thinking, well, do I want to pay a digital? Because I think it's quite expensive to even rent it. So it's expensive as you usually pay to buy it, to just to rent it. Or maybe I need to wait a little bit longer to it comes out on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and buy it, because the only thing I don't own on Blu-ray for Halloween is the one that came out in 2000. Was it 19 or 18? Yeah, the one where Jamie Lee comes back. I still don't own that one, but I have the whole series up to that, and I did see that one in the theater, so I need to buy both of those.
I think I didn't see that at the cinema because I don't know when it came out, what was going on, but I certainly wanted to see it. With why I have a feeling that might have been when I had my cinema pass, but I had my cinema pass for Curzon cinemas, which were a little bit more art house, and I think they were showing it, but particular screens, and it became difficult to sort of track it down. And I think it might have come out around Halloween, understandably, and
yes, it did. Yep,
which is obviously near our birthdays, so things are happening, and I think it vanished quite quickly as well. So I never got to see it. I don't think it was a planned. I just didn't, for whatever reason, had a lot going on, and didn't get to it. Oh, I was going to. I've got a list of things here. I was going to ask you: Have you been listening to any music recently?
Well, before I answer that, how was the Scream movie?
Oh, I really enjoyed it, but I'm a big fan. I knew about a really big spoiler, which I won't spoil, but I knew about it because I kind of got frustrated thinking I wasn't ever going to get to see it until it. I just wanted to kind of, people were saying how good it was. I wanted to find a little bit more, and I read too much and found a big spoiler out. But actually, it worked. But it worked better. It was a weird situation where because in these films where people go through, the characters go through so many things. The fact that they survive is almost ludicrous.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, had I seen that scene, there was a scene, and I might have thought, oh well, that's they'll get out of that. But because I already knew it was coming and they weren't going to get out of that scene, I was sad because I knew that it was real. So I was kind of glad that I had cheated in the end.
How do you feel about the naming convention that they're using? Like, do you disagree with them renaming something the same name as the original again? I always find it confusing.
Yeah, I don't like that really. The same way with, at least with the Halloween thing, it is a sort of alternate. I don't know how they refer to the new Halloween ones, but they because she's dead basically, isn't she? She died.
In the original series,
she died in the original. So it doesn't follow quite the same timeline anyway. Whereas this does, with Scream, it does. Now, right. I can understand how when you get to that stage, calling something 5 might put people off, but then maybe they could have called it Scream something else or some prefix or it's sort of annoying. Because I saw a DVD packet really, like on Amazon. I saw they were going. It's coming soon, sort of thing. That a 2-box set where you've got Scream and Scream, but you want the ones in between as well.
Right?
It's not like the new Scream follows on and forgets about the middle films, particularly.
So it's just the bookend movies, the beginning and the end, and the last one, most recent. That's weird.
That seems a bit weird. But no, so that does sort of annoy me. But
it does look like the original. Well, the Halloween when it returned was 2018. So
yeah, that's about the time I started having that pass.
Yeah,
it was about that time of year in 20, because my pass finished around that time in 2019, and then I didn't renew it, and I'm glad I didn't because I doubt I'd have got my money back once the pandemic started.
Right. Well, I'm glad you like the Scream movie. I'm not a massive Scream fan. I actually have only Scream 4 was the only one I actually saw in the theaters. Ron and I went and saw it. But the other ones I all saw on video or whatever. I don't own any of them. So it was probably on a streaming service or something. Never seen them more than once each anyway. So I am curious to see this one as well, but it's not one of my favorite. I understand why people really like it. For some reason, I think because it passed me by initially when they first came out. So I guess I don't have the same attachment to them. I do think they're really well done and they're fun, but they're not like, one of my main go-tos or something, I would say.
I think as well, I always forget whether it came out in 95 or 96, and I guess it might have been different in America to over here anyway, because we used to have more of a gap. Sometimes it would take 6 months for a film to get to the UK. So I think it might have got to us in 96, but I have a feeling it came out in 95. So I was only like 22 or 23 when the first one came out.
Right.
And I think it was part of my getting into horror was more gradual, from liking scary things in Doctor Who to when I was at university, sort of getting things like Halloween and Friday the 13th from rental stores. Although I tended not to rent things, I tended to, by that point, things like Friday the 13th or Halloween you could always guarantee you get a cheap copy from, or maybe a used copy from a video rental store. And I've told this story before where I used to kind of watch them, but I used to whiz through them first, so I knew where I I wouldn't watch it in detail, but at least I'd know, okay, these are where the scary bits of the film are. Because if I was watching it by myself, I gradually sort of weaned myself into horror. So I'm sure Scream was another step up with things like I Know What You Did Last Summer as well, around the same time.
So you, other than the behind the sofa scenes in Doctor Who, you weren't really a horror fan as a kid.
Well, I'd be interested in anything that was showing late night, but that would be things like Hammer films,
right.
Amicus anthology films, and things like The Wicker Man. I saw on TV before I'd ever heard of it, and probably a little bit before it had really started sort of having that following. I'm sure there was a following, but it was still underground, and I just videoed it as another film that was on late at night, and I watched it and thought, shall I keep it? Shall I not? It's very strange. I'll keep it. And but I didn't know anybody else who knew about it, and but that's the thing. Sometimes it takes a while to meet your people who my friends were more into sci-fi and old British TV. I sort of was the one who started watching like the repeats of Lost in Space so I think when we do Round the Archives, I often do American shows with Toppy. So I think to a certain extent, I'm sort of I've become the person who talks about American shows, because I also got into Dark Shadows before anybody else I knew, which is it's kind of weird, really. So as far as horror is concerned, I don't think that many of my Doctor Who friends are big into horror films like I am. So
right.
That sort of, they might like the odd film, but then, and also sometimes you find out people you didn't realise, like my friend Elaine or my friend Warren. I didn't even realise they liked horror films because I guess we just hadn't talked about it.
Well, horror is certainly it's definitely a more, it seems like back in the day, you were kind of a weirdo or I don't know. It was kind of almost a little more fringe to be a big horror fan. And now people are much more kind of like being a nerd or about anything. People are much more apt to admit, so I feel like there's a lot more horror fans out there than we realized, that there were.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of me getting into like the Giallo films, I'm pretty sure I might have had the odd Argento film, but a lot of it sort of came from getting into podcasts and with Stuart Continues stuff, and then sort of finding out about all these sort of European horror films, and that's sort of an area I hadn't explored that much. So it's been a 20 or 30 year slow progress, as you find, and I kind of find which ones I like. I mean, I definitely for quite a while like 80s horror films, I didn't like beyond about it. Sort of, I liked like the first 4 Friday the 13th, and then after that, the 80s-ness became a bit too. I think at the time, probably in the early 90s, it was too recent. So I liked Night of the Living Dead, and I liked Dawn of the Dead, but I didn't really like Day of the Dead for a long time because it looked too harsh in 80s, and but now it looks 80s in a good way.
Right.
So it did take a while for me to sort of get into. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like the 70s Giallo, and because it looks 70s. And why perhaps more recent, when you're flicking through Netflix trying to find a horror film and it's all ghosty type stuff, but it's all sort of bad CGI. It's sort of, don't know whether that stuff will ever look good, but maybe it will.
I also made that same transition from sci-fi to horror. I kind of wish and I do still watch some sci-fi, and I'm still big into stuff like Star Wars, but I kind of wish I was a little more balanced in between the two. Like I kind of because sci-fi is what got me into conventions. That was my first convention experience where a little bit of Doctor Who and Star Trek and things like that, and then I started doing like horror conventions and stuff. But sometimes I miss the roots of, and I used to read a ton of sci-fi. I never was a big horror reader other than like Stephen King. But and a few other authors, but I was a much bigger reader of like classic sci-fi.
Well, as I was finding at time of us speaking, you may not have heard the episode. You probably haven't because it only came out today. I've found a 1990 diary which was very detailed, and the listeners would have probably heard that by now. And I thought I might read the odd entry, but so far, like in the first 5 days of January 1990, so many different things happened that are still pertinent to now, or names of people, or going like my first trip to London by myself or like buying a Bangles album, which I'd probably talk about now.
Or your brother getting yelled at for doing something that you said you would have gotten yelled at even more if it had been you. I started listening this morning.
So I'd probably read a lot more if it continues along that line, because there's quite a lot of, and I can dip into comment now as I'm reading it, sort of, if I get to a point where the things that happen over, because I didn't think that 1990 would be a particularly exciting year for me, but actually a lot more was going on. I suppose it was sort of the beginning of getting a bit more freedom and being allowed to go and visit friends in London and things sort of. And I even sort of mentioning, it was around the time I was obviously getting into Stephen King. You mentioned Stephen King, that's why. Yep. I'm sort of interested to remember what order I was reading them in, because it was quite a random order at the time. I mean, in 1990 there were already like 15 plus years of Stephen King books, and I didn't read all of the books that had come out in that. When I started reading him, other things got in the way, and I moved on to other writers and didn't read everything, and then came back to him and read some of the other ones. I still haven't read everything he's done, but of course in the gap, and I started reading him again in the late noughties. Then you've got like 20, 30, whatever, 40 years worth of he keeps writing them, so it's a full-time job. Well, I was going to ask you if you've been listening to any music.
I have been very lazy with keeping up with modern music. I think I hate to say the word CD because most people buy their stuff digitally, but I still, if there's something I want, I still like to kind of own the physical medium, and then just download it also to my computer and put it on like a stick so I can play it in my car or whatever. But I think Kylie's Disco is still the last thing I bought. I even was going to get the new ABBA, and I still haven't gotten around to doing that. So
yeah, that's good. I mean, with both Kylie's Disco and the ABBA album, I did buy physical copies, but it's probably the digital versions that I've ended up listening to most. But
yeah,
and with both of those, I bought nice vinyl copies or different coloured vinyl copies, and I because to a certain extent, and I really need to work out in the same way as I'm using headphones for the TV. I need to work out headphones for my record player, because I haven't been using it as much. I've got so many nice records, and I have partly because my bedroom's so cold. It's the really cold part of it. It's the room that Callum used to have. He never told me how cold it was. So you don't want to be spending much time there in the evening. Whereas I could turn the radiator on. I've got a sort of plug-in radiator, but I need to. It's getting in the right routines for some of these things. What with editing the podcast as well. There were certain things I do in the evenings and certain sort of at times in the day where it's good to get to do that, or to be able to watch this, or so I haven't been buying much recently, but then I've got plenty I bought over the sort of lockdowns and things that still in their packaging.
I have bought some older, some other things, but they're usually older collections of a lot of artists that aren't even making music anymore or aren't around anymore.
I'm a big Amy Mann fan, and her album came out, if not on the same day, almost the same time as the ABBA one. So it meant that I was much more fixated on the ABBA one, and it was only the other week that I actually got around to listening to the Amy Mann one.
That's understandable.
Yeah, that was a good album. I was listening to it when I went out for a walk, and I had it on a loop, and was quite surprised how quickly it came round to playing. I thought, have I got a knocked it or something? But I think it's only only slightly over half an hour.
Okay.
They were quite short. It worries me a bit because I know there are exceptions. I mean, I think chart songs that are on the radio, not that I listen to a lot of those, they've got really short, like between 2 minutes and 3 minutes. It worries me that perhaps older acts are feeling that they have to make their tracks shorter. I remember a year or so ago, I haven't heard the whole album, but Electric Light Orchestra did a new album, or Jeff Lynne did a new album under ELO's.
Okay.
And there was the single I heard was really, really good, but it was about 2 minutes 30 seconds, and it kind of ended, and you kind of wanted it to go on for another minute or two, which I think it would have done had it been released. I guess perhaps because someone like ELO, they probably get played on, not on Radio 1, but they probably would get played on Radio 2 over here. So perhaps he deliberately made the track shorter to fit in with the way that the stations that would still play it, sort of thing, rather than having it edited. But it did feel a bit weird to have an ELO song that was that sort of length. It just felt like, it needed an extra minute or two. So
you think of them as putting out generally longer songs than that, for sure.
Yeah. But last year I did a 2021. I think in the last 3 years there have been enough songs, partly thanks to Adam from Foul Monkeys. He's been very good at keeping me in touch with the sort of music that's out there, but is a little bit less visible. So I mean, something like Kylie, obviously everybody who wants to know that, because she's still a big name, even though she's not getting top 10 hits anymore.
Right.
So there was no problem finding out. But there were other people who do perhaps the same type of pop that I would like, that are out there, but you need somebody to almost say, hey, have a listen to this. And Adam's been very good at pointing me in the right direction. So for the last 2 or 3 years, I've had sort of like playlists. And there's a lot of sort of stuff where the tracks don't seem to have been. I guess that there's a lot of stuff out there by people who just aren't famous, but for whatever reason, it still works. Yes, deals. For whatever reason, it's still worth their while to make music because there is an audience. It's just that they're not top 40 fodder anymore. They're either older acts or they're new acts who like that sort of music and know that people of our age would probably like this if they get to hear it. But it does feel harder to sort of track down these songs. Just this deals. You don't look so sure. What is your favourite music at the moment? Is that cat choir? Okay, such a look. Dear Phil, you're a rival to Paddington Bear, I think. Now, one of the conversations that we were going to have, which we talked about, was about girl crushes. Now, would you like to explain to listeners what we're not making them into a drink?
These would be, we had a conversation about this just kind of online, and I don't even remember how it came up, but just talking about how when we were younger, if there were women that we had crushes on, either as celebrities or possibly, people we knew in real life. This would be like, I don't know, pre or just around puberty. We wouldn't be talking about like our 20s, that kind of thing. But girls that we might have had a little crush on when we were. Now, is there any other term that's popular over there? Because that's pretty much what you'd say here would be crush. Like it's kind of an unrequited kind of, or the other person doesn't even know.
No, that would work.
Yeah.
I mean, briefly, I'll say a couple of things because I grew up with a lot of girls that were tomboys. So when we were, I don't quite remember how, so I don't know, 10, 11, whatever, and we play Doctor Who. It was around the time when there'd been like the 5 Doctors for the 20th anniversary. So they knew that there were other Doctors by then, even if they weren't Doctor Who fans. So rather than, nobody wanted to be a companion, everyone wanted to be a Doctor. All the girls wanted the Doctor as well. So it would be a matter of, I'm going to be the 5th Doctor. So it kind of disguised that. I mean, maybe one or two of those girls, I kind of felt I remember when we were slightly older, some of the girls sort of got me. A new girl had moved into the village, and they were trying to get me to say that I liked her. There was something about her. I don't know if it was just her northern accent, but they managed to get me to confess that I quite liked her. And then she was behind the bush listening. So this was the point where the tomboys were becoming more girls, and I became the token boy who they could kind of take the mickey out of a bit. And I went to an all boys. Well, I went to a mixed school until I was about 11, but then I was mainly in all boys schools, so I didn't really meet many real girls. So I was having crushes on boys all the time instead.
Yeah.
But on TV, it was typically sort of girls or female characters in shows where they were really sort of tough and independent. Right. So Wonder Woman was, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before. One of my friends, Sarah, went to school with Harry before I knew him, and she used to remember him playing Wonder Woman in the playground and being Wonder Woman and spinning around. I might have spun around, but I don't think I wanted to be Wonder Woman.
No, same here. Everybody thought the spin around was super cool, but didn't necessarily mean you wanted to be Wonder Woman.
Yeah, but I think I kind of was a sort of attracted to Wonder Woman. And also the other one was Tara King from the Avengers. More so than a lot of guys like Emma Peel and But I think Tara was that slightly more feminine, and with her, she had like the later 60s clothes and the handbag, and there's something about that was like she wasn't quite as, I think she wasn't quite as efficient as Emma Peel, but sort of perhaps more approachable than Emma Peel. Emma Peel did seem kind of like she was very friendly with Steed, but I don't know how approachable she'd have been. Whereas Tara, you felt like you could have kind of asked her out for a coffee or a cocktail, or you probably would have ended up talking about boys together. But there we go. I was very into the 60s as well.
This is Linda Thorson.
Linda Thorson, yeah.
Okay.
And then she also, when I met Wifey Joe, she reminds me a bit of Linda Thorson.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Wifey Joe, had things been different, Wifey Joe would have been the one.
Right.
But we never had that. We never had that because I didn't meet until I was already was quite certain of my interests. But what about you?
I agree with you on the Wonder Woman thing. I think Linda Carter was just a massive deal everywhere, and the same kind of followed through. I don't feel like it was. I don't know if it was quite the same extent, but I also liked. I preferred, even though I found Lee Majors very handsome as the $6 Million Man, I was a huge fan of the Bionic Woman. I think it was, I guess, a lot of gay guys when they're younger tend to favor or they seem to, a lot of them like the heroines almost more than the heroes. So I always found the Bionic Woman more interesting than the $6 Million Man, but I did watch both of them.
I guess I should just quickly say the reason I was fancying Linda Thorson from a 1968-69 TV show is that in the 80s, The Avengers was repeated quite a lot in the UK. So she was current for me, even though she was long since left and the series was long since over.
Now, was she a brunette in the Avengers or was she a blonde?
She was a brunette. Yeah.
Okay.
Although there are some episodes when she started, they weren't sure what they were going to do. There are some episodes where she was wearing a blonde wig from episodes that were mostly trashed, but yeah, she was brunette.
Okay.
They actually worked out what they were doing.
Yeah. One of my biggest crushes of, I guess I would say late childhood, like junior high school, was Olivia Newton-John. I had a massive crush on her, especially this would have been around the Grease and then the Xanadu era. I thought she had a sort of innocence or an innocent look in Xanadu that I really thought was, and it was very much of its time as far as the fashion and the hair and all that stuff. But I just thought she was absolutely gorgeous. In fact, I preferred that over the one that the boys loved, which was, the end result at the end of Grease, who her character becomes with the leather pants and all that. I didn't find that quite as interesting as the good girl.
Also, of course, I was very into ABBA. I could never work out which one I liked more, Frida and Agneta. And I always had trouble trying to work out the voice because you weren't watching it necessarily watching a video where they were singing as to work. Just a minute, is this who's singing this one?
Yep, I agree with you for that for sure.
I still don't. And they're also I still can't choose between. And there's different eras. I think Agneta is more. Apologies for pronunciation. I think once she leaves ABBA, or towards the end of ABBA, her hair. I think her very straight hair she had in the 70s was less interesting. I actually watched a couple of videos on YouTube recently, which were the hairstyles of. There was one for Frida, one for Agneta, and it went through the different changes in the hairstyle. I thought, this is so gay. But then, it comes in the territory. I think Agneta's hairstyles get more varied and more interesting in the 80s.
Right.
Whereas Frida's hair was kind of doing all sorts of things during ABBA.
Yeah, I had I was a big Charlie's Angels fan when it came out in the 70s. But I guess that was the 70s, yeah. And I even had the requisite Farrah Fawcett poster that half the, boys my age had on their wall.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, I kind of flipped over to the I tended to like a whole series of, and even into adulthood, a whole series of brunettes that were mainly from the UK. I would say probably first one I remember was probably Jacqueline Bisset, who had been in like The Deep and things like that. I thought she was absolutely gorgeous. And then because I was a soap opera watcher in the junior high all the way through college, I had a big thing for Emma Sams before she went on to was it Dynasty? Did she go to Dynasty or to the Colbys?
I think she was the later Fallon.
Okay.
She might have first appeared as Fallon in the Colbys, and then it was definitely her Fallon that was kidnapped by the aliens. So then she came in. Then when she came back from being kidnapped from the aliens, she was in Dynasty. Or Dynasty.
Okay.
So yeah, I think she first appeared in the Colbys before she appeared. Or
Okay.
There might have been a little bit of a...
Yeah, I really liked her. Although now I can't remember, was Emma Sams Australian or was she British?
She's British. I think she's...
Okay.
I also was very keen on Sophie Aldred playing Ace in Doctor Who, but then she was a tomboy.
Yes.
And she was like smashing Daleks up with baseball bats.
Yep.
And also she came into the show after Bonnie Langford, who was so not my kind of companion. And also by then I was going to conventions and meeting Sophie Aldred, and she was really, really sort of nice, and I was getting into fandom, so it was partly a good time and a good couple of years of the show where. And I was sort of 15, 16 or whatever. Yeah, it was. I didn't fancy her, but I did have a crush on her. I think there's probably a slight difference, but
yeah, I know what you mean. I think Carolyn John, who played Liz Shaw, was kind of like that for me. Mm-hmm. She was a crush, but not necessarily wasn't more of a sexual thing. It was more of a, I don't know.
Well, I definitely had a crush on Sarah Jane in
Sarah Jane was awesome, and Liz Sladen is just. She still sad over that passing. She's just a gem.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the boys would have liked Nicola Bryant.
Yep.
A character could be a little bit annoying at times, yeah, I can see but I can see she's very attractive, but I wouldn't say I'd had a crush on her. Or any of that sort of era. So, I mean, as much as I really like the Peter Davison era, I didn't have a crush on any of the characters, male or female.
Yeah.
I never had a crush on the character of Adric, because though I was, but then he was older than me when I was watching that show, so it's not like he was the irritating brat to me, but
well, now Matthew Waterhouse is he's more attractive now, well, in my opinion, than he would have been back then. Of course, some of that was the hair and all that stuff of the character was very
Mark Strickson's aged very well as well.
Yeah, I was fond of Tegan too.
Yeah. Well,
but her character could be annoying as well.
Yeah. It's funny how she's in sort of, I guess, about 3 seasons of Doctor Who. She gets a different costume for each season, but then she has to wear it all the time.
Right.
I hope they had a good sort of laundry service on the TARDIS in that.
Oh my God, I know. Because was the first season the air stewardess uniform?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I guess she could have had multiple versions of the clothes that she wore in the second 2 seasons, but she wouldn't have had multiple air hostess costumes.
Right.
Either she was very smelly, or they managed to wash her air flight. I mean, it was silly, really. Once she was not going home, why would she keep wearing a horrible uniform the whole time?
Right.
She just kind of, okay, well, we're gonna meet some monsters, so I'm gonna sort of just put a pair of trousers on.
Right. Exactly.
Dear. Oh, Dales is back. Dales, we're moving on to another subject.
I did frequently tell Ron that I would have considered switching sides if I had met Elizabeth Hurley when she played I think it was Bedazzled with Brendan Fraser, where she was playing the devil. I think that I never saw the whole movie, but there's like a thing where she's wearing like leather pants, and it's like, oh my god. But and same with Kate Beckinsale in the Underworld movies. Both those women are beautiful. I could see the appeal for the guys, for the straight men.
There's a few characters in, like, there's a character in Prisoner Cell Block 8 who becomes the sort of top dog, who's sort of a certain I'd say she's blonde, and I start to think, I think I like that person in that program, and she's so maybe I also like some blonde women as well.
Yeah,
it's interesting to kind of trail the sort of what ifs, or the I remember being around Nick's house, and a friend of his was being very coy about what women he fancied, and I sort of spoke up and said, look, I'm gay and I know which women I fancy, so come on. I mean, Olivia Newton-John, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there were other people, and I always quite liked Debbie Harry in when she was in Blondie and stuff. There were certain people that I sort of follow, like on Twitter, of like photos of, you know, where you're getting photos of them from their classic period, sort of, whether it be singers or actors or.
I feel like I always went for the, like, if there was in a music group or a TV show or something, if there was always like two main female characters and one was supposed to be sexier than the other, a lot of times I'd find that the other one would be the one that was more attractive to me.
Well, there was a film called The Truth About Cats and Dogs, and I think it was maybe it was Uma Thurman and somebody else, but I can't remember who. And I think Uma Thurman was supposed to be the sexy one, and the other woman was supposed to be the dowdy one. And all the people I saw that film with, straight or gay, were like, no. I mean, Uma Thurman does look great in some films, but in this film, they hadn't thought about the casting. They just think, oh, well, this woman's slightly overweight, and this is Uma Thurman. But actually, the other woman was very attractive.
Right.
So it didn't really work, because, I mean, considering the whole film that was about that, you know, a man going for a dowdy woman. I mean, it was a horrible concept anyway, but it didn't work because the other woman wasn't dowdy. She was actually equal or not better looking than the person that was supposed to be the one that was better looking.
Yeah, it's the whole Ginger versus Mary Ann syndrome here with Gilligan's Island, because, you know, Ginger was the movie star and the glamorous one, but it seemed like half the kids I talked to back in the day, the boys, everybody was always or a lot of people were Mary Ann fans.
Oh, another person I definitely thought I'd have a crush on rather than slightly more would I've always very much liked Audrey Hepburn, particularly in the 60s films, partly because, Toppy, don't listen to this bit, I prefer seeing her in colour. I think it just feels more like, well, you're seeing somebody, if you're seeing them in colour, that's how you see people, unless you're colourblind.
Right.
And I think, yeah, she's just so sort of, I mean, that's a bit of the wifey Joe as well. She's can be a bit Audrey Hepburn. It's funny and probably not politically correct to have these sorts of conversations these days, but but we are, everyone has these, everyone has the people that they like. Right.
It's usually, I mean, we're talking about a little bit more of an innocent thing than something pervy.
Yeah.
We
should get Nick to tell us some of the
that would be interesting.
Some of the boys that he had funny feelings about. Well, you mean about girls? Well,
yeah. I've heard some of his.
If Nick was talking about the girls, we'd be here all day. And Nick would quite agree with that. But it makes you wonder whether they ever had sort of little tinglings or boy crushes on male stars.
Right.
We could probably talk more about the boys we fancied before we even realised that we fancied boys at some point. But
that's true.
But I'm afraid we have a few other things we need to be doing, and you've got an appointment with Cromitty. We've also got big news about Aragog, and a little bit more. I've got a harder quiz for Aragog. And he said something then. But and also Yeti and John, we've got poor old Jay he's been very good and has done some more photo shoots with Yeti Uncle John, and we'll be hearing about that. But anyway, we'll let you talk to Cromitty. I know he's been working on your virtual reality dinosaur, and he just needs you to make a couple of decisions before he can finish it. So
sure.
So yes, a little bit of music, and we'll be there. Hello, Jay. It's so nice to see you. I just need to speak to you because I think we need to clarify, or we need to pin down which dinosaur you want. I know we talked about a few of them, but
sure.
Do you have any one in mind, or would you like me to show you a few more? We just need to. I don't want to go over the ones we've already talked about unless they are particular ones you want.
Right.
But do you have a favorite that you've always wanted?
I do have a favorite. It's technically not a dinosaur, but most people wouldn't know that. And it was called Dimetrodon. Oh. And it had this was early on before the Cretaceous and the Jurassic. It had a sail on its back, and it was sort of like a giant lizard with big teeth and a sail on the top of its back.
Good. You certainly we can. I can still, before we finalize things. I can. I just need one or two potentials that we can program in
sure.
before we sort of sign it off. But let me see. So, of course, there's so many that the people think there are a handful of names that people always hear about.
Right.
Of dinosaurs, but there's so many. I mean, I'm just looking here. These are just plant-eating, like herbivore dinosaurs from the Cretaceous period, and dear oh dear, Paul is always having this problem. But there are some here that I literally never heard of these. We've got the Ankylosaurus, the Ceratops. I've heard of Triceratops, and I've seen that but there's also a Ceratops. There's the Corythosaurus, the Edmontosaurus, the Euplaciophallus. Dear. the Iguanodon, the Malasaura, the Minmi, the Notoceratops, and I can't tell you how the differences are, but I'm just reading them from the name. The Ornithomimus, the Protoceratops. Must be lots of different areas of ceratopses.
Yeah.
The Stegosaurus. I think that must be different from the Stegosaurus, because I see there's the Styracosaurus. That's made of styrofoam. I'm not sure. Probably not. But, yes, I mean, I don't. There's a whole list of all sorts of this Cretaceous era. it sounds like the 1960s of dinosaurs. There's the meat eaters from the Cretaceous era include Tyrannosaurus rex, but there are also the Albertosaurus, who I wonder if that's where Albert the Dragon is related to them. There's the Baryonyx, the Carnotaurus, the Deinonychus, the Giganotosaurus, the Spinosaurus, the Tyrannotitan, and the Velociraptor. So out of that list, the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Velociraptor, they were the ones that got to number one in the charts this week.
Sure.
Some of these other ones are lower down in the charts. But,
right.
But trouble is, and I'm quite happy if you want to explore, outside of what I'm talking about here. It's just that once you start looking, I don't know whether there are good photos, or I guess there are not photos, but recreations that we can use to put together your virtual reality dinosaur.
Yep.
It's just that once you start looking, you realize, oh gosh, there are so many more, and you click on this and you click on that, and they are. There's really quite. I don't think we talked about the Stegosaurus last time. Do you remember? I don't. Now, the Stegosaurus, or Stegosaurs, they lived 150 million years ago in the late Jurassic, early Cretaceous period, and the first fossil was discovered by Professor Othniel Marsh in 1877. The large bony plates he found on its back reminded him of roof tiles, so the name he gave it means roofed lizard. And apparently Stegosaurus had a brain the size of a ping pong ball, but I don't think you would want to play ping pong with it. I don't think it'd have the right bounce.
No,
it would just go splat. I don't think it would bounce across the table. But apparently they were 30 feet long and 14 feet tall. They weighed about 2 tons, which is about the size of an average American car. And I've been to America, so I know the cars in America, they're quite big compared to the ones in the UK. They seem bigger. So, yes, you wouldn't want one falling on you. Or even the brain might be quite heavy. So, no for the ping pong. So do you want us to look a bit more into the one that you were talking about, or are you willing to consider some other alternatives?
No, I'm willing to consider something else.
It's just whether if you've got a virtual reality dinosaur, maybe it should be a 100% dinosaur, so you don't have to keep explaining, well, actually, no, it's not a virtual reality dinosaur, it's a virtual reality lizard that's a little bit like a dinosaur.
Yes, you make good sense there.
It's just, if you're going to go down this route, it's sort of, you want to be, I don't know, equally so, if you pick a very obscure one, you'll have the same problem where people will go, oh, is that your iguanodon? And you're like, no, it's a it's a very obscure one that only lived for 5 years in about 1973 or something. It's difficult. I don't think there were any dinosaurs around in 1973. Well, maybe some on the on the TV, but and some of the people doing singing at that time, but not actual dinosaurs. Well, I think that we will, it's a matter of how much space, I suppose, you have. It sounds a little bit unromantic, but you will be able to turn off your virtual reality dinosaur or put him into sleep mode. So, but when he is fully, running around in your garden, I believe you do have some space at the back of your house, and they're not fields as well. The good thing is that nobody, like if you have a pet, I'm not saying that people like that would live where you live, but nobody will be able to steal your virtual reality dinosaur because you will have the control set in your pocket. I guess if they stole that, then they could steal your virtual reality dinosaur, but you would find it quite safe to have it exercise, because it does need, it's a bit like, do you remember those, did you have them in America, Tamagotchis?
Yes.
Yes, where you were kind of feeding them and all that.
Yep.
Even though it's virtual reality, it will still need exercise, or will be in its programming. It will still need to be fed, but its own sort of food. But obviously, when we come to that, I can explain that. But yes, you will have the reassurance that nobody will be able to take them away from you, certainly not easily. And you I suppose you'll just have to. We'll have to look into. You don't want to scare the neighbours, but still, we'll come to that when we get to it. But let me see.
I think I made a decision, if it'll be easier for you.
Yes.
Let's go with the Triceratops.
Oh, right. Wow. I've got some information. Let me just... now, it says that Triceratops was one of the greatest. He's a herbivore. They like to graze in herds, but, I think in this... Well, we could probably give you multiple copies if you want, but it won't. They are the Triceratops. It means a 3-horned face, which makes sense. They lived in the late Cretaceous period. They had nose horns they use for defense. They are 30 feet long, and they weigh 5 tons, about as much as a truck. So yes. They lived about 68 to 65 million years ago, and this was at the same time as the Tyrannosaurus rex, the Spinosaurus, and the Albertosaurus.
Mm-hmm.
But to defend itself against meat eaters, it had two long brow horns. These could grow to be at least 3 feet long. They would be able to cause a lot of damage to an attacker. Its dinosaur classification is Ceratopsia. Some types of Triceratops had knobs of bone on their neck frills. These frills would have made it hard for an attacker to get hold of their neck. They like to eat plants, and there's a whole list of Cretaceous plants we can replicate for you. They particularly lived in the upland forests of North America, so at least I'm not sure if this is the most popular place, but it's the only place that is particularly named on this map. So in a way, that is nice that they are kind of local. Locals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of your relatives may have been eaten by one. I don't know. No, that's only on the Flintstones. But anyway, yes. But well, I shall lock in then for a Triceratops, and we'll get you back in a few months when you can first meet your new child. I do want to I think we should have a look at the Albertosaurus whilst we're here.
Okay. I think that's from Alberta, Canada. From Canada is probably where they found the first.
I did wonder. Yes, I did wonder because I noticed some of those other names of other dinosaurs. I thought that might be because they come from a certain area.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the meaning of its name is Alberta lizard. They also lived in the late Cretaceous period. They could run up to 30 kilometers an hour, I think, or 19 miles per hour. Their length was 30 feet. They weigh 2 tons. They do look a little bit like the Velociraptor, but probably, I don't know. That's sort of 2 strong feet and little arms. There's probably a lot of difference, but yes. They lived 73 to 70 million years ago, yes, they were found. The first skeletons were found in Canada, and it suggested they lived in herds. They had strong muscular back legs. Yes, so
cool.
They're about 30 feet tall. I think I might have said that already. Anyway, Jay, thank you for joining me today. And
sure. Thank you.
I shall get on with the programming and it's good to know we have a definite vision for the future now. So
excellent. I'm excited.
Great. I'll hand you back to Paul.
Okay. Take care.
And to you. Well, Jay, next up, I need to tell the listeners about what's been going on with you and Yeti Uncle John, as it were. More. I can't believe you agreed to do more photography. What did he do to? Was it what happened in the wardrobe that time that made you? Actually, I'm surprised.
Yeah, that might have helped. Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised.
I don't know what you mean.
I'm surprised. Property is. I thought he would have mentioned that. He seemed very, very discreet about. I think he was a little bit jealous about what was going on. I was worried there was going to be some sort of rivalry, but actually, Property is currently dating somebody else. So my friend Milo. So maybe his mind is on Milo. So probably for the best. But
good.
Let me see. Before we do say a little more, I've got a little bit of trivia about photography, which I thought I'd share because, this is what Yeti Uncle John is so keen on at the moment. Apparently, the first device made to project an image on a surface was the camera obscura, or darkroom in Latin, or that means darkroom in Latin. The principle was first recorded by Mozi, a Chinese philosopher, around 470 to 391 BC. The camera obscura was the basis for what we know as a pinhole camera. I've heard of one of those.
Yep.
That's what people sometimes use to view solar eclipses and things. During the 1800s, one of the most popular subjects for photography was dead bodies, post-mortem photography. While it was primarily famous people who were photographed, many regular folk were also photographed after their deaths. I think I've seen, I think I'm aware that was a thing. Whether that was in watching a horror film, and but I've certainly read something or seen something about how that was something that was a subject for photography in that period. But apparently, Kodak, the photography giant, they were founded in 1888. When George Eastman, its founder, was asked why it was named Kodak, he said that K sounded like a strong letter to him, that the name itself had no real meaning. Never really thought about that, but I would have presumed that there was some more detailed reason. But so we'll come back to this at the end maybe and do a few more facts right at the end of the show. But I think we need to tell the listeners about what he got you involved in. So Yeti Uncle John has been working for a number of different very obscure journals, and he managed to, for whatever reason, lure Jay back. And so I'm going to tell you each of these 3 or 4 different journals, and then we'll flash forward to some of the recordings that were made at the time, where there were, it wasn't plain sailing, was it, Jay?
No.
So the first one that you did for him was for Penny Farthing Weekly, I believe. That must have been a nightmare. Let's have a look at how you got on with that. Come on, Jay. There's a ladder. You just have to climb up onto the penny farthing. You won't fall off. It's fine. You can. I'd say wear a crash helmet, but they didn't used to wear crash helmets in those days. So you've just got to kind of go with it. You'll be all right.
I don't know, Yeti Uncle John. This looks a little shaky to me. Where did you get this thing?
Oh no, it's real. It's a real penny farthing, authentic penny farthing. they used to make them from matchsticks like this. They were they were. It's because that's what they had. They didn't have a lot of material for making bikes back then, so they used to use things like matchsticks and the stories you may hear about people riding down hills on penny farthings, and then the matches sort of perhaps not still having a bit of spark in them, and the whole thing going up into like in an inferno. That's just old boys' tale, so it didn't really happen. So you'll be fine.
Oh, really? I never heard that at all. So okay.
I'm sure I'd not told you. Anyway, you look very smart on there. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, what could go wrong? Okay, what the heck?
So, did things go wrong, Jay? Did you burst into flames, or was it okay?
I did not burst into flames.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
I think he just got a cheap penny farthing prop from somewhere. I've never heard of penny farthings being made of matches. I think that's just Yeti Uncle John being very cheap. I mean, you'd have thought that the magazine itself would have offered it if he was taking photos for them. But I think a lot of this is almost like you take the photos and then you offer them to the magazine. Especially at the level that Yeti Uncle John is at, I don't think he's being, headhunted to be one.
Right.
So
they're not looking for him.
Yeah, maybe the props were his own. But then the next one that you did for him, I can't believe you did this one. It was for Baked Beans in the Bath Monthly. I've never heard of this magazine. Baked Beans in the Bath Monthly.
It was new to me too.
That must have been pretty cold. I wonder if it wasn't just Yeti Uncle John wanted to get you in a bath of baked beans, was it? Let's see how. Well, who knows? Let's see how you got on. Look, Jay, we can't heat the baked beans up because it would just, it would burn you, yes. And so you have to sort of just put up with them being a bit cold. But you can eat them afterwards, so that, I've bought these beans, so, we don't want to throw them away. So I'm going to do a nice sort of heat them all up at the end. So you'll get fed. I can't pay you anything, not, in any real sense, but this Baked Beans in the Bath Monthly is a highly prestigious baked bean journal. May not have heard of it, but then they've probably not heard of you, say. So you can't expect to be know everything. But
I'm sure the fame enough will be I'm sure just the fame from this will be enough for me. I don't need to be paid, Can we make sure the bathroom's at least heated before I get into this cold tub with baked beans?
Well, I suppose so, yes.
That'd be nice.
I think we finished with that penny farthing. I'll just see if I can set a fire to that. Heat the bath with a fire underneath it. That's fine. That'll be fine. The bath won't melt. I'll just go and find that bike. Where's it gone? I can't believe he nearly set fire to you.
You can't?
Well, I can believe that he did set fire to you. I can't believe he didn't run away. But
yeah, I can't eitir.
Did you eat the baked beans in the end, or did you?
No, I offered to have them sent to some farm where some poor animals could go for that.
Yeah, I can understand that. Now, I don't really understand the next one. Pretend Astronaut Digest. You'll have to talk me through this one. This is, from my understanding, it's for people who like to imagine they're astronauts and to wear the astronaut gear and pretend they do like recreations of like the moon landing and things.
Of course, or aboard the Nostromo or things like
Yeah, so you had so you had to dress as an astronaut.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from either. That thing I put on was
No, look, Jay. I assure you, this is an authentic astronaut. Authentic astronaut kit. When you see the astronauts in space, it's very difficult to tell that their spacesuits are actually just made of crepe paper. It's not as thick as it looks. Space is very kind. These people who are fans of being pretend astronauts, they really like to wear the actual authentic kit, and just be very careful when you put it on. Don't tear it, because don't worry, you're not going to get sucked out into space, because we're obviously not in space, because you're only a pretend astronaut. But even so, I've got to take it back to the fancy dress shop. the fake astronaut clothing shop.
Doesn't Ick have something more appropriate that I could wear, or something more realistic?
Yeah, but you don't
also,
have as many testicles. Tentacles as he does.
Oh, good point.
Well, I don't think. Do you? No, anyway.
I get this. I get the suit. How's it supposed to look like we're in space, though?
I've got. Well,
on a backdrop or something.
Yeah, backdrop, and I couldn't get the right nylon threads, so we've just got ropes. But at least you won't be falling anywhere. And I'll just have to Photoshop. I'll Photoshop them out, yeah, or just I don't know. Well, if you do it behind a black background, all I need to do is use a black marker pen and just scribble over it. But it'll look good. Don't worry, it'll look great.
Well, it can't be any worse than the beans, so let's go for it.
Yeah, let's do it now. Yes.
All right.
I can't believe I've seen the photos. I'm not. You can still see that. I'm sure. Why can't he use proper Photoshop and get? It just looks like he scribbled on the shiny paper of the photo, and
that would be too professional. I don't know
it's like smeared, it's smudged. I guess it would be. I don't know. Now the last one, I think he must have just done this one for a joke. It says some magazine. I don't even have a title for this one. A martial arts magazine, but where everyone is dressed as a sausage. Is that right? So you were doing like karate, but you were dressed as a sausage.
Oh, I thought that was a dream I had last night. That really happened?
I'm not sure. Maybe it was a dream, because there's no actual name of the magazine. But let's listen to what's your dream anyway.
Okay.
Jay, I've never seen a sausage quite as
tasty.
Authentic. It always makes me want to eat you. You're very sausagey. Can you still do the karate moves?
Well, don't make a promise you can't keep. I will try.
Yeah,
it's not going to be pretty.
I just worried about you busting out of the sausage skin.
That is a problem.
Yeah, it could be quite well. If you do, then I can always sell those photos to a different kind of magazine, possibly. There's a magazine about people who dressing up as sausages. So, but no martial arts. But anyway, you don't need to know the details.
It does seem like an odd combination.
Just do your thing, and I'll take the photos.
Okay.
For my own personal collection.
Things I do for you, Uncle John.
Oh yeah, thank you. Dear, oh dear. I think it's a good thing Cromitty wasn't around for the photo shoot. But,
you're right.
Oh dear, oh dear. Well, we're coming towards the end of the show. There'll be a little bit after the music and stuff, but before we go, we really do need to tell the listeners the news about Aragog. You better do it before I say something. So
okay. So once again, I was incorrect about Aragog's gender. She recently molted again, and I shared a photo of it on Facebook, and somebody who's a little more knowledgeable about the subject than I pointed out that it appeared that she was a girl and not a boy. So I watched some more videos and things and examined the skin, and it appears that he is correct. Aragog is back to being a female again. Which means she's slightly misnamed from Harry Potter, but we're just going to have to deal with it because she already knows her name. So yeah. I'm not going to screw with that.
And didn't you tell me that the females live longer as well?
Yeah, they live
quite a bit.
Yes, considerably longer, and they are also usually larger and more colorful than the males are. So, I guess it's not a bad thing. But if I take a dirt nap before she does, then I'm going to have to find somebody that's willing to assume the responsibilities of having an intelligent spider in their midst.
Particularly if you do if you do more photo shoots with Yeti Uncle John,
Yes.
chance of you going
Exactly.
up in a plume of smoke, going down a hill on a penny farthing made of matchsticks.
Still picking beans out of my hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we've got Aragog here. We've got a little bit less time than I was hoping we'd have, but I'm glad she's here. Got some more general knowledge. I just want to keep her mind active. We'll try and perhaps when you come back to do the virtual reality dinosaur sort of unveiling, perhaps we'll do a longer quiz. But I've got 5 questions for her anyway.
Okay.
Just want to, but this time we've gone for the hardest questions there are. So it may just be 5 questions, but they're really difficult. But I think she's up to the job. Okay. So, question 1. Which British actor was the recipient of the 2012 BAFTA for Outstanding British Contribution to Cinema?
Okay. Yes. Oh, yeah, that's true. She says John Hurt.
Well, she is right. John Hurt. Of course, also played Doctor Who very briefly.
Yes.
Around that time, actually, perhaps a year after that. So, gosh, he came to Doctor Who with a BAFTA in his pocket. So this is going to be a difficult one because it's a UK one, but I'm afraid there's no clues either because it's a difficult one. In which year was the first London to Brighton veteran car run in the UK? I don't know if you know, but I think it's like a race between London and Brighton in an old car. So yes,
cool.
So yes, what year was the first one?
I can't imagine how she would know this, but let's see. She thinks it's 1896.
Well, I'm afraid to say that she's right. So I'm not really afraid.
Wow.
How did you know that, Aragog?
That is crazy.
Wow. Just been doing
I
a lot
didn't know
of
about the race, let alone the year.
Yeah, perhaps she follows it. Okay, question 3. How many books altogether make up the Bible?
Okay. Now, this one I could see her getting because she's pretty well read.
Yeah.
66.
Yes, Aragog. Well done. Well done.
Go on.
Okay, this is a sciencey one next. Which chemical compound has the molecular formula H2O2?
Yeah, she's going to know that one right away. Hydrogen peroxide.
Yes, you're right. Aragog, last question. Can you make it 5 out of 5? This is another, well, it's a word one, so, but it's also, let's see. In which year was the Oxford English Dictionary first published in 10 volumes? It has to be the 10-volume version.
Let's see. I think so. Okay. 1928.
Spot on. Well done.
Yeah, 5 out of 5.
She keeps on getting them right. She just keeps on getting them right.
Time to hit Jeopardy next.
Oh, well. Told you, listeners, this is a very clever lady. As we'll do more. Maybe we can get somebody else. Maybe somebody else can bring their very clever. Actually, we can get Yeti Uncle John versus Aragog. I don't know. It's possible. But anyway, well, I think that's pretty much all we've got time for. Thanks again, Jay. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And you'll be back again. Well, when Cromitty has, I'm sure he'll get on with it. And I know you get busier in the summer, but the weather getting better and stuff. But I'm sure we'll get you back. And more soon.
I can't wait.
Okay. Okay, listeners, we'll say goodbye for now. But keep on listening because we've still got 1 or 2 things to come. But I'll say bye for now. And thanks to Jay. Goodbye. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, Jay, I've got a few more facts about photography. Oops. The oldest known surviving photograph is View from the Window at La Grasse, taken by Nicéphore Nippius. I can't pronounce that name. It's anyway, a nice man. Well, actually, I don't even know if it's a person.
Right.
With a very difficult to pronounce name. Nicéphore. Anyway, it was taken in either 1826 or 1827, and it took about 8 hours to expose it. If Uncle John wouldn't have the patience if it took that long. This is quite a fascinating one. The world's first colour photo was made in 1861 from 3 separate photographs taken through red, green and blue filters, then projected onto a photosensitive plate with corresponding filters. This method was suggested in 1861 by Thomas Sutton. Not from Sutton Park, surely. This seems to be a picture of, I don't know, it's like a ribbon, a sort of ribbon. It's not that exciting. So yeah, a coloured ribbon, which has, I guess that's why they went, because it has got more than one. It has got 3 different colours. But find one more. I can hear the theme music bubbling away. I think it'll be here. Did you know that Photoshop dates back to 1987, or a form of it dates back to 1987? It was when it was called Image Pro. It's not very exciting. I need to find a very exciting one. The world's largest camera collection belongs to Dilesh Parekh of Mumbai. He owns approximately 4,500 cameras. I mean, I owned quite a few video cameras when I was doing Sutton Park, but not that many. But
yeah, he's got to have a lot of storage space.
Yeah. Every 2 minutes, we take more pictures than all humankind did in the entirety of the 1800s. Well, 1800s. That's not surprising. I would have thought. No. I would have thought even in the 1900s.
Me too. I mean, I think about how much luckier like younger people are today to have the phone with the camera on them all the time, because they could capture so many things that we could back in the day, unless you thought to bring an actual camera with you.
Oh, here's a good one to finish with, because it's about an astronaut, seeing as you've had this fake astronaut situation. Apparently there were 12 Hasselblad cameras on the surface of the moon. They were left there to leave room for the moon rocks brought back to Earth. Obviously, the film was taken home, but they left the cameras up there. So if you're ever passing the moon and you just happen to be in that area, you might find there's some cameras sitting there, but you need to bring your own film. Okay.
Oh, that's interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So, yeah. I can hear the theme music, so we better say goodbye for now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, 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 goodbye.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear, what's going on now? Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Let's go.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
Oh, well, Jay, I just wanted to speak to you because I heard that you've been modelling for Yeti Uncle John's photographs.
Hi. Might be a strong word. But yes, I've done that.
Oh, well, I was wondering if you would pose for a portrait that I would paint. Now, I do offer quite good rates of money for my models. So if I email you the details and how much will be paid, then maybe you'll consider it.
Oh, yes, August. I'd be honored. That'd be great.
Oh, wonderful. I'll go and do that now. I'll go and make up an email for you. Oh, it's wonderful. Yes, okay. Yes.
I look forward to hearing from you.
Wonderful.
Jay, were you talking to August? What's going on?
I don't know what you mean.
He's not trying to paint you, is he? I heard him mention money. Can you afford to pay him to the honour of being painted by him?
Maybe. I don't know. It's just in the early talking stages.
Sorry, Jay, I should interrupt here. I overheard the conversation as well, and I don't think that's what August was saying at all. He wasn't expecting Jay to pay him. He was going to pay Jay, because I know that he pays Martin when Martin models for him. I'm very sorry about this, Jay. I'm sorry. I just wondered. I mean, Jay, when Jay poses for my photos, he gets payment in a different way. I just didn't realise there was money going around. But,
sorry for the misunderstanding.
No, I don't know. I can compete in this market, but oh dear. Well, maybe you need to rethink. Sorry, Jay. It's
okay.
Oh dear. What's going on here? Comedy, it's just getting Uncle John here. August offered Jay some paid work as a model, and Uncle John is beginning to worry that he's going to have to start paying his models when he takes photos. Well, so he should do. Yes. I mean, I don't mind doing it for free when it's Yeti Uncle John, but anyway, I better go and speak to him. Oh, dear. I don't know how I cope with this show, Jay.
Just another misunderstanding.
There's so many things going on here. Dear. How will I cope? How do I ever cope? I need to lie down. Make me a cup of tea.
I can do that for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'll draw a warm bath, Joe, if you'd like. No baked beans, I promise.
Can you draw?
Just figure speech.
I think that was a wonderful episode, don't you, Toppy? I sure do. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
510.
Now that one was funny.
510. Okay, let's just shove this one out. Get her going.